Now in this sharp King's Indian attack position, Bobby Fischer as white is poised to break through on the kingside, and he's about to play a very high level move. Pause the video and have a go for yourself, see if you can find it. I'll be very impressed if you can. Well done to those who found it. The answer is bishop to f6, a stunning sacrifice. If black captures, white will take, and he's threatening to bring the queen into h6 with mate on g7, so black's forced to play king h8, bring the rook to the defence. We can now go knight f3, switching to a different plan of knight g5 with mate on h7. If black goes knight d5 to attack this pawn and try and get the knight back to defend h7, we can go queen h6, cover the pawn, and threaten mate again, so black is forced to go rook g8. We now go knight d5, the queen's forced to move, and the plan of bishop to g2, e4, threatening mate on h7 is impossible to stop. So a very long sequence of moves to see. Be very impressed if you found that. If black instead goes queen e8 to bring the queen to defend on f8, cover the g7 pawn, we can go knight e4. Now if pawn takes, knight takes will be a fork of king and queen, so if the knight takes, we can go rook takes, bring the rook to the g file, and this is such powerful rook lift that black cannot avoid being checkmated here. Now let's see the sequence of events that led up to that crazy position. This was a pivotal game in the history of the King's Indian attack, for reasons I'll explain. So we have e4, e6 and d3. This is a more hyper-modern approach to the French defence. We play d3 rather than immediately seizing the centre, d5 and knight d2. This prevents an exchange of queens after pawn takes, pawn takes. Another way people play is queen e2 immediately, as we're planning to fianchetto our bishop anyway, but Fischer went knight d2, knight f6 and g3. c5, bishop g2, black goes for a standard development plan with knight c6, bishop e7, castle, and then advancing on the queen side, while white will play knight f3, queen e2, castle, and then play e5 to block the centre. So knight c6, knight gf3, bishop e7, castles, castles, and e5. This is step one of our plan in the King's Indian attack. That's to block the centre. When the centre's blocked, we have more time to build up a kingside attack, so black is forced to go back with knight d7. e5 is generally good if we can keep this pawn stable. If black has time to play queen c7 and potentially even f6 and get rid of this bulwark on e5 before we're ready to support it with moves like queen e2, rook e1, knight f1, bishop f4, then we're going to be in trouble because black will take over the centre. So we go rook e1 to support this pawn, and b5. The way most people play nowadays is queen c7 immediately. We play queen e2, so there's not much difference. So b5, knight f1. Now this knight's got a big future. We're going to want to play h4, bishop f4, and then bring the knight into the attack via either h2 or e3. It's going to go to g4 and potentially sacrifice itself later on, but we'll see that in some detail. This opening really revolves around the h-pawn. If this h-pawn can get to h6, we're generally doing very well. Even if we don't get mate, having that pawn on h6 will be a long-term asset for our position. Now the thing is, black's attack normally hits first in this opening, but it's much less powerful as it's not going towards our king. So black goes b4. He's got very simple plans to advance all the pawns down the board. He's going to open the queen side, activate his pieces, so that we don't have time to mate his king. We go h4, just the plan, a5, bishop f4, standard development, a4. Now here, Fischer came up with, it's a very little move, but it's a startling novelty that no one had seen before this game was played. Now, the move is a3. We're moving pawns on the side where we're defending, which is normally a no-no, but my rule of thumb is make one defensive move on the side where your opponent is attacking. Just one, because it will slow them down enough that you have time for your attack to break through. So, what's the point of this move? Black would go a3, but we'd be forced to go b3, and then he's got a clear plan of breaking through with bishop a6 and c4. We'd rather go a3 ourselves, as this blocks the a file. It does allow black to open b file, but then his plan of bishop a6 and c4 is a lot less powerful, as our whole queen side will not be opened up. So we go a3 ourselves, b takes, and knight a5. Now this was black's first inaccuracy in my opinion. What he should have done is gone for more active development with rook b8 immediately, threatening to come into b2 later on. He can follow up with knight b6 and bishop b7, followed by d4 and then c4. Black doesn't want to play c4 immediately, as we can play d4 and then fully block the centre, and then he's not breaking through on the queen side ever. We could even think about playing c4 ourselves here, just to stop this c-pawn from moving. Then if black plays d4, he will have a nice bishop on this diagonal, but he won't be breaking all the way into our side of the queen side. Anyway, he went knight a5. His idea is to go d4 and then c4, but his problem is that this d-pawn is not going to be adequately defended, hence the reason he needs to play knight b6 first to open up the queen's defence of the d-pawn. We go knight e3, black goes bishop a6. Now here Fischer went slightly wrong. He should have gone knight g5. Now the idea is to bring the queen to the attack as fast as possible. Then black would either have to give up the dark squared bishop, so for example he might go d4, we go queen h5, bishop takes g5 just to stop checkmate, bishop takes queen c7, and now we can play bishop f6. Now the idea here is that after pawn takes, we've got bishop e4. Now you can see all our pieces start to flow into the attack after all this preparation. Black might go f5, and we can go knight takes, sacrifice another piece, e takes, bishop takes, rook f8. And now our counterplay is worth 2 pieces, as we can break through on the king side with queen h7, king f8, e6, and this will lead to mate. So you can see the value of having the queen in the attack as early as possible. You can see the value of having these pieces ready to sacrifice themselves to blow open the king side. If instead, for example, we play knight g5, if instead black goes h6, we can play queen h5 anyway. H takes, let's say black moves his knight back to c6 or something. Then we've got the idea of knight g4, again coming into f6. If pawn takes, we'll be threatening mate on g7, so black would have to counter sacrifice and then the king side would be open. So for example, knight g4, knight d4, trying to hit this pawn. We can even contemplate bishop takes d5 to make space for the king to come to g2 and the rook to come to h1, as checkmate on the h file will be unavoidable. So you can see there's many possibilities, but it all hinges around this queen coming into the attack. Instead, Fischer played bishop h3, a bit of a bizarre move. I mean, what's this bishop doing on this diagonal? This pawn's defended, knight g4 is not needed. I mean, you don't have to play bishop h3 to play knight g4, so anyway, black went d4. Now Fischer again played an inferior move with knight f1. Why not just bring the knight into the attack with knight g4? I'm thinking he might have been worried about something like, c4, but we can just take, knight takes, and then we can take on d4 and bring the knight back into the game to e3, and we're taking over the centre. Now here, because white's wasted time with bishop h3 rather than bringing the queen to the attack, it's actually better for white's playing the centre here and just take over and win in the conventional way, which shows you have to be flexible in your thinking. Either you attack on the king side or on the centre, depending on what black does. Anyway, Fischer went knight f1, knight b6, another inaccuracy by black. A better move would be to play c4 immediately, open the queen side as fast as possible. I cannot stress this enough, because after d takes, then you can play knight b6. This c pawn will be falling, and knights are coming into the position. Black will eventually threaten d3, supported by the bishop and queen, and then he can bring the rooks to the c and d files, and our kingside counterplay's barely got off the ground yet. We go knight g5, again with the idea of bringing the queen in, which Fischer does do eventually. Knight d5, and now Fischer should have gone queen h5 with similar plans to before, but instead he went bishop d2. You can see why he did this, preserve the bishop pair. Now this knight's got no targets. If it comes to c3, it won't actually be hitting anything because the queen wants to come out anyway. So black went bishop takes, g5, bishop takes, and queen d7. Now black's in a bit of trouble. Once he's given up this dark squared defender, sacrifice on f6 become more possible. White's plan is to give up a piece but then end up with a pawn on f6, and the queen can come in and mate this way. So queen h5, black goes bishop b7. I mean, black should have gone bishop b7. We can bring our knights to the attack via h2 and g4, sacrifice on f6 or even h6. So for example, knight h2, c4, takes, and knight g4. The only way for black to actually stop our threat of knight f6 with mate on h7 or g7 is to play king h8, but then white can just revert to playing in the conventional way with bishop g2. You can bring his rooks to the b and d files, and he's still got latent threats on the king side, so he can play all over the board this way, which is quite complicated. So I don't know, maybe Fischer could have managed it, but yeah. Rook fc8. I don't really get this move. I mean, black wants to play c4, but why not just play it immediately? Knight d2 and knight c3. Now, this is another poor move in my opinion. Black should again just open the c file, man. Like, just play c4, bishop f6. If black takes, he's forced to play king h8, of course. Knight takes, just drops a piece to queen and g5 check, so king h8, bishop g2. Now, we're threatening to bring the knight into e5, hit this pawn. We're also threatening to play knight e4. If the queen moves, the knight will come into d6. So it's very complicated position. Black will be trying to open the c file and then bring his rook in potentially. His bishop would come into d3, so it's very hairy. I can see why Fischer didn't want to do this, because this pawn would be hanging. But the thing is, after pawn takes, we can actually go queen h6, threatening mate, and then rook g8, bishop e4. Again, the bishop and queen work together. And black is basically losing here. Anyway, black played knight c3. We go bishop f6, queen e8. The idea is to bring the queen to f8, safeguard this square. If we could even play king h8, queen g8, safeguard this square in the event of bishop g2 to e4. And here, white played a brilliant move. Knight to e4. Again, leaving this bishop hanging. It's just going to sit there until black takes it, or until white gets fed up and tries to play bishop takes g7. Now here black played g6. Now his position is already pretty bad, but probably better would be to try and bring the bishop back into the game, get rid of one of the attackers. Anyway, black went g6, queen g5. Now queen h6 does not actually work here because black can just counter queen f8. White's plan is to go queen g5, h5, open the h file. He can play king h2, king g2, rook h1, or he can just do this and then potentially even play bishop e7, knight f6 check, or something like this. Black's defenders, you can see he's not even opened the queen side yet. All his pieces are on the wrong side of the board. He needs to have played c4 probably about 5 moves ago, and then he'd be, you know, coming in from behind white's position, but it's too late by now. Go queen g5, knight takes, rook takes. We even got a rook lift. The rook's going to come into the game. c4, h5 takes. Now Fischer, true Fischer style, he doesn't even recapture. He plays rook h4. Now black does not have time to promote this pawn. If he goes takes, we can just take on g6. Now we're threatening pawn takes, then queen g7 mate. So black will lose here. Rook a7, just trying to defend along the second rank. But if this f7 pawn wasn't here, black's position might be okay. So here Fischer went bishop g2, just gearing up for the final coup de grace. D takes c2, queen h6, making a battery down the h-file, queen f8, and now a brilliant move, queen h7 check. And here black resigned, because after king takes h7, we have taking on g6. If the king takes on g6, we have bishop e4 check. If instead the king goes back to g8, we have rook to h8 checkmate. So a stunning game from Fischer. You can see he played so skillfully on both sides of the board and in the centre. He made just enough moves to slow black down, and he attacked fast enough to exploit black's inaccuracies. So I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something, and I'll see you in the next one.